Chapter 1, Pullman Cyberculture, Atlanta, Georgia. In a world driven by the relentless pursuit of innovation, the brightest minds work tirelessly in secret. Hidden from the public eye, scientists across the globe bend their will to the singular objective of survival, conducting their research deep within state-of-the-art laboratories. They explored the boundaries of cybernetics, pushing the very limits of what it meant to be human, all under the weight of an existential crisis. They sought one thing, the enhancement and preservation of humanity. Dr. Monica Pullman, poised and confident, stood at the front of a sleek, dimly lit conference room. Rows of monitors reflected the faces of the most influential political leaders in the country, each expression revealing a different shade of apprehension, interest, and skepticism. The Senate Armed Services Committee had gathered here in strict confidentiality for one reason, to decide the future of cybernetic advancement. In the center of it all was Dr. Pullman, her eyes sharp, her demeanor unshaken. "Good morning, Madam Chairwoman, and members of the Senate Armed Committee," she greeted, her voice calm yet commanding. Her fingers drummed lightly on the podium as she gauged the room. There was tension in the air, a mix of anticipation and fear. These were powerful people, but even they could not escape the nagging thought of what lay ahead. "Thank you for joining me in this medical presentation of human cybernetics." Pullman's words cut through the silence, and all eyes were on her. The delicate balance of power, science, and ethics swirled in the room like an invisible storm. Chairwoman Senator Jessica Cross adjusted her glasses, peering over them to address the committee. Her voice held the weight of authority, but there was something softer in her tone, as if she herself was unsure of the path they were about to take. "Same to you, Dr. Pullman, and to Ranking Member Mr. Bowler, and the honored members of this committee," she began, her voice steady yet restrained. "The purpose of this closed, classified meeting is for Dr. Pullman to explain the advancements of her cybernetic program and discuss the government funding proposed for her company and other collaborating entities." Cross's words hung in the air like a hammer waiting to fall. She shifted her attention to each senator, noting their unease. Everyone knew that they were on the brink of a monumental decision, one that could change the course of human history. Dr. Pullman, unflinching, continued. "Thank you again, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee." Her voice held a touch of warmth now, though her determination was unyielding. "In conjunction with my colleagues in laboratories around the world, I am pleased to present the findings from our research into the cybernetic and cellular combination. We believe it is feasible to begin human trials." As she spoke, a holographic display illuminated the room, a twisting scale of DNA intertwined with cybernetic structures, suspended in the air before the committee. It was a visual that captured the essence of her work, the blending of human biology with machine, the potential to rewrite what it meant to be human. The display cast an eerie glow across the faces of the committee members. Their expressions were a mix of fascination and disbelief, torn between the promise of salvation and the dread of playing God. Dr. Pullman continued, her voice taking on a cooler, more clinical tone as she outlined her findings. "Laboratory testing on certain organisms under controlled environments has shown promising results. Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee, these results demonstrate resistance to microorganisms and radiation. It is the breakthrough we've been waiting for." But the calm didn't last long. Senator Thad Bowler's brow furrowed in visible discomfort. His deep, rumbling voice broke the momentary silence. "Dr. Pullman, are you telling this committee that you and your colleagues are prepared to move forward with human volunteers for this program?" His voice carried a weight that reflected his inner turmoil. "As a man of faith, I believe we are stepping into the realm of the Almighty. And that can be very dangerous." There was a tense shift in the room. His words struck a chord. The other senators exchanged uneasy glances, feeling the gravity of the ethical quagmire they were entering. The walls of the room seemed to close in, trapping them in a moral dilemma with no easy escape. Dr. Pullman didn't flinch. Her response was sharp, even cold. "God isn't in our program, Senator Bowler," she said, her words biting with a calculated precision. Our team is simply building on what was originally created, by adding some upgrades, Senator. The silence that followed was deafening. Her challenge to faith hung in the air like a black cloud, casting a shadow over the committee. It was Chairwoman Cross who broke the stillness. Her voice was apprehensive, and though her role was to maintain composure, the strain was evident. "How soon can these human trials be implemented, Dr. Pullman?" she asked, her tone laced with concern. "And have you taken steps to safeguard those willing participants?" The committee members leaned in, their tension palpable. Senator Elizabeth Schumann chimed in, her voice tight with concern. "Dr. Pullman, we all know your expertise in cybernetics and cloning," she said. "But how can we, practically speaking, sell this to the American people? Or the world, for that matter?" The weight of the question hit hard. Pullman could feel the scrutiny increasing, but she stood her ground. These men and women, while powerful, were afraid. Afraid of the future, afraid of losing control, afraid of the unknown. Yet they knew deep down that without drastic measures, the human race faced annihilation. Senator Gail Hamilton added her voice to the growing wave of concern. "I must echo my colleague's sentiment," she said, her words deliberate and measured. "How can we ensure that this is done in a humane way, and not unleash a catastrophe that we cannot contain? Diseases are already plaguing us. What happens if this technology gets out of hand?" The room buzzed with whispers, the collective anxiety growing by the second. Chairwoman Cross raised her hand to regain order. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves, senators," she urged, her voice firm but weary. "Dr. Pullman, I'm sure you have answers to all of our concerns." Pullman took a deep breath. The weight of the room, the eyes on her, the expectations, it all pressed down on her. She knew there was no turning back now. "Madam Chairwoman, ladies and gentlemen of the committee," she began, her tone sober, "there are no guarantees. But my colleagues and I have implemented the best-known safeguards. We cannot predict every outcome, but we know that we must take this step, or risk doing nothing at all." Her words hung in the air like a final verdict. The room fell silent, each senator digesting what had just been said. The walls seemed to close in once more, as if the gravity of their decision was pressing against the very fabric of the room. In that silence, the enormity of what they were embarking on became clear. They were on the precipice of something far greater than they had imagined, a decision that would alter the course of humanity forever. As Dr. Pullman stared back at the committee, the tension in the air became a tangible force. It was a force that pulled them all into the unknown, leaving only the question, how far were they willing to go to save the human race? Chapter ended.